Hello, and welcome to the month of Spooky 2024. Scary stories are a part of life. We've been telling them since the dawn of man over campfires, radio broadcasts, television, and these days, social media. They remind us of our own mortality, get our adrenaline going, and send chills through our bodies that, well, we just can't explain. During this month, you can expect the unexpected, hear the unbelievable, and witness stories that will stretch your imagination. Why? Because that is what we do here at Ron's Amazing Stories. So settle in for the spooky and be prepared to be taken away from today.
What's that you say?
Hello, and welcome to the podcast. It's time for another month of the spooky stuff. Today, we're going to get it all started with a full slate of the scary. In fact, scary is the thought of the day, and we'll start with that. Next, I will look at the new audiobook, Autumn Nights, 13 Spooky Fall Reads. This is a creepy one. Next up, we have a story from George Garza and his encounter with 18-year-old James on Tombstone Pass. Our featured story is cited as being one of the most terrifying programs broadcast during the golden age of radio. It is quite suspenseful. We will end this show with a series of short fictional stories sent in by you. A lost town, nightlights, closets, and a haunting. So relax, if you can, and enjoy the show. The other day, I thought, being creative is what I do. I like to think that it brings new folks in and old listeners back.
That is true.
I have been doing it since 2011, and over the years I've done some things that have hit and some that have fell on deaf ears.
That bad, huh?
But there's always some rhyme to my reason. And this segment attempts to give some insight into how my brain works.
Alrighty then.
Welcome to the month of Spooky 2024. If this is your first time with the RAS in October, you are in store for all things creepy, heart-pounding, or downright scary.
How fun!
I like to think so. So to start it off right, I thought what we needed to do was to look up the origin of the word scary. Let's face it, the word scary itself isn't particularly, scary. It doesn't sound like a blood-curdling scream or a creaking door. In fact, it's almost cute. And if you knew its real origin, you might find it even less intimidating. So, buckle up for a linguistic journey that's more chuckle-worthy than chilling. The word scary invokes a feeling of fear, anxiety, or apprehension. It suggests that something is threatening, unsettling, or potentially harmful. It can also be used to describe a wide range of experiences, from a spooky movie to a dangerous situation. The word scary can also be used in a more playful way to describe something that is exciting or thrilling, such as a roller coaster ride. Ultimately, the meaning of scary depends on the context in which it's used. The earliest known use of the adjective is in the late 1500s, in a translation by Richard Synhurst, literary scholar and translator. The actual word scary traces its roots back to the Old Norse word skar, meaning timid or shy.
Well, that can't be right.
The very word we use to describe monsters, alien abductions, and things that go bump in the night once meant something akin to a bit bashful. Now, imagine a Viking warrior, axe in hand, facing down a fearsome dragon saying, "You're a bit scar, aren't you?" It's like finding out your childhood boogeyman was actually just as afraid of the dark as you were. So how did this timid word evolve into the powerhouse of fear it is today? Well, language is a funny thing. It twists and turns, taking unexpected detours. Over time, scar morphed into the Middle English word scarin, which meant to frighten or scare. And from there, well, it was just a short hop, skip, and a jump to the modern scary. It's almost as if the word itself got over its shyness and decided to embrace its inner fright factor. So, the next time you're watching a horror movie and feel a shiver run down your spine, remember the humble origins of the word scary. It just might make you laugh instead of scream. And who knows, maybe even the monster under your bed are just a little bit scar themselves. It could be. Well, there are my thoughts for this time. I hope you found them entertaining. All ideas expressed in this segment are mine and fall under the Conventional Expression Copyright Act, and therefore are subject to ridicule and praise as the case may be. Feel free to offer feedback and any thoughts you might have on the main website. I would love to hear from you. Today's podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/Ron's Amazing Stories. Autumn. The season of pumpkin spice lattes, cozy sweaters, and things that go bump in the night. But forget those warm and fuzzy feelings, because today we're diving headfirst into the dark side of fall with Autumn Nights, a chilling new audiobook. Here is the foreword to the book, narrated by its editor, A.W. Wang.
Dear readers, when my good friend Cass Kim, the author of Wilders and a new star of YA fiction, mentioned doing a Halloween anthology for charity, I jumped at the chance to be a part of it. She has assembled a group of 13 plus 1 authors to contribute a short story to celebrate all that is spooky about Halloween. Each of these wonderful writers are up-and-coming talents who bring their own unique flair and creative twistiness for those who appreciate this time of year. This book is for those who love black cats, for those who love autumn leaves, spiced rum, and pumpkins, for everyone who loves Friday the 13th, and for those who love tales well told. These 13+1 stories span the different genres from historical to sci-fi, from horror to comedy, from lit RPG to romance, all with a Halloween flavor. In them, you'll find scary darkness and unexpected humor, happy endings and sad ones, good people and evil beings, and mystery throughout. Thank you for reading this anthology. You'll have a great time, and it's for a good cause. Enjoy the spookiness of October 31st, and prepare to be entertained. Best regards, A.W. Wang.
If you think you know all the spooky cliches of the season, think again. These twisted tales explore the sinister side of autumn with terrifying twists and turns that you won't see coming. From haunted hayrides to vengeful scarecrows, each story offers a unique and terrifying glimpse into the heart of darkness that lurks beneath the colorful foliage. This audiobook is for those who get excited about Halloween and crisp fall weather, and maybe even pumpkin spice lattes. Are you the type to dream of windy nights and tumbling leaves even while summer days stretch on? Do you want scary bonfires with doses of humor and twists on classical tales? Well, this collection is perfect for you. There are 13 short stories plus one bonus story. I think they say that to make use of the number 13. Each twisted tale glimmers with a different sinister face of autumn to bring chills to your spine. Two of my favorite stories were Bloodlines, a Sage Roberts story by Cass Kim. Left home alone all week for the first time, Sage's trip to the pumpkin patch takes an unusual path. Now she'll find out just how many secrets her little town keeps. Magician's Weekend by Martin Shannon. Insanity is a pizza pie best served cold. Or at least that's how it's going to be by the time Eugene Law gets to it. A quiet evening without the family turns into a madcap parade of critical roles and saving throws in this D&D tale of Weird Florida. This is a great audiobook. The narration is perfect, the stories are chilling, and it's over 10 hours of goodness. There's nothing bad to say about this one, and you won't go wrong listening to it. Now, if any of that sounds interesting to you, head on over to audibletrial.com/Ron's Amazing Stories to get Autumn Nights for free. Here is what Audible has set up for us. They are offering a free audiobook in 30 days to give you the opportunity to check out the service. You can stream or download thousands of included audiobooks, podcasts, and Audible originals in the Plus catalog. There is so much to do at Audible that you're not going to run out of material. So, to download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/Ron's Amazing Stories. You won't regret it, and you'll be helping me out in the process. Also, don't forget to check out the rest of our spooky offerings this month, and remember, sometimes the scariest stories are the ones we tell ourselves. Thank you, Audible.
These are your stories, sent by you, for you.
Our story for this week comes from George Garza, who lives in Scottsburg, Oregon. We've had a lot of stories on this show, but this one by far grabs the title Unique. It is the perfect story to tell for the month of spooky, and also happens to be from my own backyard. Well, that is if my backyard was 198 miles long. Here is George's story, which he has titled The Santiam Wagon Road. My story is true. I know that when people hear it, they think I made the whole thing up. That used to bother me, but these days I live with it. It doesn't stop me from retelling it every chance I get. Someday, it's my hope that someone will believe me. I want to thank Ron for this opportunity to share to the biggest audience yet. It happened in 1993 when I was 10 years old. My father and I went camping. The original plan for the summer was to have the whole family there. But my little sister had other ideas and was born a month early. I, of course, was heartbroken that we had to cancel the trip. But then my mom decided we should go. The baby was healthy and Dad could use the break. Also, I heard a little later that the reservation was not refundable. So it was that we too would go for the whole family. We were going to Cascadia State Park, which is located on the site of the old Geisendorfer Hotel in Western Oregon. It's a little-known state park in the Cascade foothills 14 miles east of Sweet Home. The place is alive with history, from ancient rock art in Cascadia Cave to the very ruts of the old Santiam wagon road. It was while visiting this old trail that our story took place. To this day, my dad doesn't like to talk about the event, but at least he doesn't deny what happened. We were at a place on the trail called Tombstone Pass. It is the beginning of a treacherous 7-mile hill for westbound travelers. It got its nickname from a family tragedy in 1871. While stopping overnight to camp with his family, 18-year-old James McKnight was accidentally shot as he retrieved his gun from between two bedrolls. His grieving mother placed a marker in his honor, which was later replaced by a gravestone, which is still there today. It was getting late in the evening when my dad and I decided that we would unpack the dinner that we had hiked with us. My dad built a small fire, which to this day I'm not sure he was supposed to do, but he did, and we heated up franks and beans. A real Westerner's dinner, to be sure. We were laughing and having a good time around the fire, thinking about Mom and my new baby sister, when a man came into our camp. Well, a boy would be a better description. I estimate he was around 18 years old. He asked if we had any extra grub and that he would chop wood or do whatever he had to earn his keep. My dad, being the cool guy, joked with him for a minute about chopping down one of the nearby trees, and the boy just smiled. My dad told him to have a seat and pointed at the food. It was then I noticed, for the first time, that I could see through the boy. I could also see my dad saw it too. He looked strange, like he was there, but not all there. He was dressed like some sort of reenactment character from the 1800s. My suspicions were confirmed about his non-solid nature when the boy walked into the fire and passed through the other side without disturbing it or being burned. Both my dad and I looked at each other in disbelief. Then the boy tried to say something. He sputtered, stammered, and then simply faded out. He was gone. We were never scared. We never felt in danger. And after the event, all we could do is agree that we had both seen him. We, of course, told my mom about it when we got home. She was quite polite, but she didn't believe us. My sister, who is in her 30s now, believes the story, and I like to think my wife believes me, but I can't be sure. Was this the ghost of James McKnight? I can't be sure of that either, but we were only about a half a mile from his final resting place. George Garza from Scottsburg, Oregon. What an amazing story, George. I did a bit of research and I found the name James McKnight in the census records of Parma Township in Ohio. That's where he was actually born. The family had left there to come west, so the story is actually history. The timing is a bit off, though, and has him listed at 20 years old at death and not 18. The Santiam Wagon Road holds an interesting and unique place in Oregon's history. Unlike the other trails that were built at that time to bring settlers into the Willamette Valley, this road was designed to lead settlers and their livestock eastward into the rich pasture lands of Central Oregon and Idaho. Well, George, I want to thank you for your story. I can honestly say that we've not had one quite like this before. That's it for this time. If you have a story that you want to share, head to the main website at ronsamazingstories.com. Click on the story submission banner, leave your story, give it a title, and please tell me where you're from. I'll read it if I can. Our featured story is constantly cited as one of the most terrifying programs broadcast during the golden age of radio. It is an episode from the series Suspense, which was produced and directed by William Spear. He determined that the series should deal with life and death situations, and then through the use of some musical coloring and really terrific sound effects, slowly tighten the knot of suspense, then finally giving us a release in terms of the solution. Many of the early stories, like Sorry, Wrong Number, were turned into major motion pictures or used on television shows like The Outer Limits. The series also used the talents of mystery writers of the day, as well as horror writers of literature, such as Edgar Allan Poe, H.P. Lovecraft, and H.G. Wells. While our story never made it to the big screen or TV, it probably should have. The plot is presented as a story within a story, framed by a meeting between Detective Sam Spade, played by Howard Duff, and his friend who has discovered a manuscript that tells a story that is, well, amazing. It is titled The House in Cypress Canyon and was originally broadcast on December 5th, 1946.
Suspense, radio's outstanding theater of thrills, is presented for your enjoyment by Roma Wines. That's R-O-M-A, Roma Wines. Those better-tasting California wines enjoyed by more Americans than any other wine. For friendly entertaining, for delightful dining. Yes, right now, a glassful would be very pleasant, as Roma Wines bring you Robert Taylor, star of Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer's Undercurrent, in a remarkable tale of suspense.
Merry Christmas, Jerry. How's the real estate business?
Kind of early with your greeting, aren't you, Sam?
Well, I gotta get them in sometime. I may not see you again until next Christmas.
If this real estate racket gets any crazy, I'll be dead by next Christmas. I'm glad you could get up here, though, Sam.
What's on your mind, Jerry?
You'll probably shoot me when you hear it, Sam, because I'm probably nuts. But doggone it, you're a detective and you're my pal, and I just had to tell somebody.
You sound like it's serious.
That's just it. I don't know what it is, Sam, but now listen, you know we're agents for a group of houses up in Cypress Canyon.
Mhm.
Those places that were started before the war, never got finished.
Oh, yeah.
All I got in were the foundations, just concrete and a couple of beams. Well, they've been finished now. In fact, I'm putting up the for rent on the last of them today.
What do you want? Police protection from the mob?
Listen, Sam, this house that I'm talking about, it's got a number now, 2256. But before, when the men went back to work on it about 3 months ago, well, they just started when the foreman on the job brought me a shoebox that he'd found up on a beam. And this box had a manuscript in it, a story kind of, all written out.
Yeah.
Well, he gave me the thing. I read it. I didn't think much about it. I put it in my desk. But the other day, and I happened to drive by there, I saw the number on the house and what the house looked like. I thought of this manuscript. And, well, I don't like it. That's all. There's something funny about it.
What's funny about it?
Well, mind you, this thing was found in an unfinished house in Cypress Canyon. House that was only just started building.
All
It's,
right.
well, listen, Sam, I want to read it to you if you got the time, and you'll see what I mean.
All right, shoot.
Well, here's how it begins. To whom it may concern. My reasons for setting down on paper what follows here will be abundantly
follows
clear.
here will be abundantly clear to anyone into whose possession it may fall. First, let me say that I'm a very ordinary person. My name is James A. Woods. I'm 35 years old. By profession, a chemical engineer. My wife, Ellen, was a school teacher when I met and married her in Indiana 7 years ago. There's nothing in the past life of either one of us to suggest remotely any cause or reason for the dreadful thing that has invaded our lives. Our married life has been in no way different from that of millions of other average, reasonably happy, and congenial families. 3 months ago, I was ordered by my firm to take charge of a rather minor project in Los Angeles, Hollywood to be exact. The order was a sudden one. There'd been no time to secure accommodations, and conditions being what they are, the inevitable result was that until day before yesterday, we'd been living in the cramped quarters of one of those characteristic California motels. Needless to say, most of our spare time had been devoted to a search for something more permanent and comfortable, but the fruits of these efforts had been, financially and in every other way, a geometrical progression of discouragement. Until last Saturday afternoon, only 4 days before Christmas. We were driving into town on our way to a movie when Ellen saw it.
Jim, look.
What?
That sign in front of that real estate office.
Oh, yeah.
But don't you see what it says? For rent, furnished, 2-bedroom house, close in, immediate occupancy.
Yeah, uh-huh.
Aren't you going to stop?
Oh, Ellen, you know what a sign like that would mean, right out in plain sight in front of a real estate office.
Oh, yeah, but Jim...
Either they want $600 a month.
We'll never know until we ask.
If it's any good at all, there are probably 50 people fighting for it right back there now.
Well, honey, there's no harm in trying now, is there?
You really want to go back?
Oh, it's probably foolish, but what can we lose?
Okay.
Oh, darling, come on, cheer up. How do you know? Maybe our luck's changed. Maybe fate's going to give us a nice new house for a Christmas present.
Come in.
Oh, we're sorry to bother you, but we just happened to see that for rent sign outside.
Oh,
and,
yeah, I hung it outside just this minute.
Is the house available?
Why, sure it is.
Let me introduce myself. My name is James A. Woods, and this is my wife, Ellen.
How to do? Wow. Looks like it's fixing to rain.
Yes, so it does, doesn't it? Well, it was one of those things. The real estate agent had just been authorized to rent the place by mail that morning, and he'd hardly had time to look at it himself and put up his sign when we drove up. It was just an ordinary little California house about halfway up Cypress Canyon, number 2256. Just an ordinary, undistinguished little house. The agent didn't know much about it. Construction on it had been stopped by the war, and it had just been completed and furnished lately. Been vacant while somebody's estate was being settled, and now it was owned by a bank in Sacramento. Of course, we didn't
Got
care
this
about
key
all
in the
that.
mail along with the authorization to rent. Only one there is. Of course, you can have duplicates made. Yeah, seems to stick a little. No, there it is.
Doesn't sound as though that door had ever been open.
Well, a little oil on the hinges will fix that all right.
Oh, sure.
Now here's your living room. Furniture's a little dusty, of course. You got to expect that. It's good furniture, though, you see? Benson Brothers.
Yes, uh-huh.
Now, over here's a little den. Panel, you see? Radio, fireplace. Really a very attractive little room, particularly for a man.
Uh-huh, yep.
Now, the bedroom's off the living room here. Everything's all on one floor, you understand?
Uh-huh.
It's quite nice, I think.
Yes. Uh-huh.
You can see you get the morning sun here. There's a view of the canyon through these front windows. You got cross ventilation.
That's about all there was to it. It wasn't the best place in the world. It was small and badly built, but what would you have done? We took it with as little inspection as that. It was the Saturday before Christmas. And the very same evening, we were struggling up the steps from the road with suitcases and boxes and armloads of clothes and all the endless bric-a-brac that people collect and never know they have until they move. Ellen began unpacking, and I began moving things around and taking the worst of the pictures off the wall, doing all the little things that everybody does when they move into a new place and try to give it something of their own
Don't be
personality.
such a sourpuss. You know, it's a roof over our heads for Christmas. That's more than we ever thought we'd get, isn't it? Now, what in the world are we going to do with those two pictures?
Why don't we just leave them where they are?
Jim, we can't. They're too awful.
Well, all right, put them in the closet then.
I can't. Both the closets are jammed full.
No, I mean the other one in the little alcove off the den. At least there's a door there. I suppose it's a closet.
Yeah. That isn't a commentary on the housing problem, huh? A woman moving into a house without even knowing where all the closets are. Take the pictures down, will you, honey? Bring them in here.
Okay.
All right. Guess you'll have to help me with this door. I can't get it open.
Let me see it. Well, of course you can't, silly. It's locked. Where are those keys we found in the desk?
Here they are.
Well, not this one. Sure this one won't work. No. Feels like an awful solid door for a closet.
Oh, and that's one solid door in the house.
No, this one won't do it either. Well, we'll just have to get a locksmith up here on Monday. I'll put the pictures behind the desk, okay?
Yeah, all right. Jim, if you could just help me move this armchair, huh?
Oh, Ellen, will you let it go until tomorrow? You know what time it is?
Oh, but, honey, I'd like to get the place looking just a
Yeah,
little
but it's
bit.
almost midnight. In fact, it's exactly...
What was that?
Tomcat, I guess, out in the brush somewhere.
Sounded near. Hope that doesn't go on all night.
Well, there's much we can do about it. Come on, Ellen, I'm dead tired.
All right, Jim, all right.
Where'd you put the toothpaste, honey?
It's right in the medicine cabinet.
Oh, yeah.
Jim, we ought to get some firewood tomorrow. You know, a fire in that living room would make all the difference in the world.
Can't. Sunday.
Well, Monday then. Jim, I think red curtains are what we need, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
You know, just at least for the living room. Anyway, the ones in there now have just got to come down.
Yeah, I suppose they do.
What do you think of red?
Well, I guess it's all...
Jim,
Some tomcat.
Jim, it sounded in the house.
Now, how could it be in the house, Ellen? We've been over every inch of the house.
Except closet.
Now, how could a cat or anything else be in a closet that's been locked up for over a year?
I don't know.
It's probably under the house. A wildcat or mountain lion or something. I hear they have them in California.
Jim, I don't like
Well,
it.
neither do I like it, but there's nothing we can do about it tonight.
Well, maybe we ought to call somebody, the police or some
don't
neighbors.
be silly, Ellen. You act like a kid. Come on, let's go to bed, huh?
All right, I suppose it is silly. Jimmy, did you lock the door?
Yeah. Can I turn out the lights now?
Yeah. All right.
Good night, Ellen. Sleep tight.
Good night, Jim.
I don't know what time it was, perhaps an hour, perhaps only a half hour later. My mind was in that hazy borderland between sleep and a dream that's still part of consciousness. Then I was awake. Ellen, are you all right?
Yes.
Did you have a nightmare or something?
No. I heard it too.
Well, that didn't sound like any cat.
Put on the light.
Yeah.
It seemed to be out there, Jim, in the house somewhere.
I'm going to look into this.
Jim, you be careful.
Come on. Where's my shotgun?
In the den, I think. Jim,
What?
there's something wet
What? Wet?
running from under the closet door. Sticky.
Ellen, don't touch it.
I had to. Jim, it's blood.
For suspense, Roma Wines are bringing you Robert Taylor in The House in Cypress Canyon. Roma Wines' presentation tonight in radio's outstanding theater of thrills, Suspense.
Between the acts of Suspense, this is Ken Niles for Roma Wines. These days before Christmas are busy ones indeed, yet smart hostesses everywhere find time for shopping and distinguished home entertaining later. The secret? Magnificent Grand Estate wines. Presented by Roma, America's greatest vintner, Grand Estate wines add distinction to your hospitality on a moment's notice. Make your holiday welcome, effortless, and in perfect taste. The brilliant clarity, full fragrance, and mellow taste of Grand Estate wines please discriminating people everywhere. For Grand Estate wines, limited bottlings by Roma, are born of choicest grapes, then patiently guided to superb taste richness by Roma vintner skill, necessary time, and America's finest winemaking resources. Delight your guests with Grand Estate California wines for entertaining, medium sherry, ruby port, or golden muscatel. For dining, Burgundy or Sauterne. So insist on Grand Estate wines and enjoy the crowning achievement of vintner skill.
And now, Roma Wines bring back to our Hollywood soundstage Robert Taylor as James A. Woods, with Kathy Lewis as his wife Ellen, in The House in Cypress Canyon, a tale well calculated to keep you in suspense.
It cannot be too difficult to understand from the foregoing why I've taken the pains to set down in writing the events related here. To find in one's newly rented house a closet which cannot be opened is in itself certainly no great cause for alarm. But to be awakened in the stillness of the night by unearthly cries within that house, to find oozing from under that closet door something that is unquestionably blood, that's another matter. Perhaps others might have been braver than we. Suffice it only to say that we got out of the house in something very close to a panic, and only returned when we had the moral support of two stalwart Los Angeles policemen.
You just moved in here, you say?
That's right, officer. You can see we're still unpacking.
And the place has been empty right along before that?
Yeah, I don't know much about that part of it. You could check all that with the real estate agent, though.
Well, where is this closet?
Oh, it's right in here, officer. And the blood is...
Where? Where's the blood?
Jim?
Officer, I swear to you, there was blood on the floor less than an hour ago. I saw it.
Uh-huh.
It was running out from under that door. We heard that noise, and we got up, and then we saw it. The door was locked.
Locked, huh?
No,
Well, it seems to be all right now.
Hey, you folks aren't trying to be funny, are you?
Isn't there anything in it?
No, ma'am, there is not.
Look, officer, we're reputable people. You can call my firm. They'll tell you all about me.
There's nothing wrong with this closet. Walls are solid. No trapdoors.
If you think I'm lying...
I didn't say that, mister. Oh, you probably did hear some sort of a noise, and you got a little panicky, and...
What about the blood? It got on my hand.
It isn't there now, is it?
Yes.
Where?
I feel it.
Now, you folks just take it easy. You know, you're liable to hear all kinds of noises up in these canyons at night. You're from the east, you say?
Yeah. I'm sorry, officer.
Ah, that's all right. That's all right. If you have any real trouble, call on us anytime.
All right.
Well, good night.
Good night.
Good night. Hey, you ought to have this door fixed. That's enough to scare you.
Yeah, we're going to have it fixed. We didn't say much about it after that. There wasn't much that could be said. The next day, I went down to a lot and bought a little Christmas tree and some trimmings, and we tried to pretend we were cheerful, but there was an uneasiness between us that had never been there before. Ellen seemed tired and listless. Several times during the day, I noticed her washing her hands with a brush, scrubbing the one that had touched the blood. That night, we each took a sleeping pill and went to bed. It was sometime after midnight when I was suddenly wide awake and staring into the darkness. In some way, I knew at once and instinctively what had awakened me. Ellen was not in her bed nor in the room. The nameless thing I feared gripped at my heart until I could scarcely breathe. I opened the bedroom door and started through the house, putting on every light that I could find. There was not much to search, but I searched thoroughly. The living room, the kitchen, bathroom, den, even the garage. And all the time, the dread of looking where I knew at last I must look. for I think I knew from the very first time where I'd find her. It must have been a full minute that I stood before that closet door. Then I opened it. She stood there rigid, her arms at her sides, her fingers extended like claws. Her hair was over her face, her eyes stared out of it. Her lips were drawn back in a grin like an animal at bay. For a moment I was frozen with the horror of it. I stretched out my hand. Very deliberately, she turned her head and sunk her teeth until they met into the flesh of my forearm. I'd raised my hand to strike at her, but already she'd relaxed her hold and gone utterly limp. She would have fallen unless I'd caught her. I carried her into the bedroom and laid her on the bed. Strangely, at that moment, my only thought was how I might revive her. Until I saw that it was not a faint, but a sleep that she'd fallen into. A sleep as deep and heavy as though she'd been drugged. And so I left her. But for me, that night, there was no sleep.
Jim?
Yes, Ellen?
Oh. What are you doing up so early?
Oh, I got a little restless. Make some coffee.
Oh. Oh. I had the most wonderful sleep. And I feel so rested.
Do you?
Mm-hmm. Jim.
What?
What's the matter with your arm?
Oh, I just heard it.
Why, honey, it's terribly swollen. Let me see it.
No, it's all right, Ellen.
Oh, it isn't all right. You've got to see Dr. Wesley right away.
Sure, I will.
No,
I
now
will.
you promise me, Jim, that you'll go the first thing this morning. How'd it happen?
Oh, there was a dog.
A dog?
Yeah, I heard him trying to chew through the screen door. I went out to chase him away, and he bit me.
Well, you mean there's all that racket and I didn't even wake up?
No, Ellen, you didn't even wake up. It was clear to me that Ellen knew nothing of what had transpired the night before. I went to my office that morning and made a pretense of going over routine business, if only to restore my mind to some semblance of calm by the sight and sound of common, familiar things. Pain in my arm had become a persistent, dull throbbing. I made a late appointment with Dr. Wesley. He treated my arm with something of an arched eyebrow, and he said,
"Well, I've never seen anything quite like it before. That is such a rapid onset of infection."
It was dark when I left his office. I hadn't realized it was so late. Driving home, my car seemed sluggish until I saw the needle on the dashboard and realized that I was pushing it to the utmost of its speed. I was racing home to prevent something before it was too late, before the darkness had conspired against me. For somehow I already knew with certainty that it was the darkness and the night that I had to fear. The curves of the canyon seemed endless. And then the cold fear leaped up inside me. My house, too, was dark. I went slowly up the stone steps from the road, looking, praying for some sign of light or life. There was none. The house was empty. Ellen was gone. I looked with the same self-torturing thoroughness, and in that closet first of all, knowing as I did so that it was hopeless. And so, alone in that empty house, I waited, powerless and helpless now, deadened in thought and will, empty as the house itself, save only for the overwhelming sense of a terrible foreboding. It was sometime in the early hours of the morning when I snapped on the radio, shortwave. Why? Surely a minor question now. I only know that I did. Then I heard it.
Car 58, car 58, go to Laurel Canyon, the 4000 block. A report that a man has been injured or attacked. Condition thought to be critical. Ambulance will follow. That is all.
I was there almost before the police, edging my way through the little crowd, staring down at the man lying there in his white uniform under the streetlight.
Yeah, the milkman, poor guy.
I heard him scream, but when I got here, it was just like this.
Stand back, stand back. Please stand back. Well, you again.
I heard it on the radio. I lived just down the road.
Yeah, I remember.
What happened?
Well, take a look. Maybe you can tell us.
He was dead, and he was lying on his back, and his throat had been torn out as though by the fangs of some wild animal. It is now Christmas Eve, or rather Christmas morning, for it's a little after midnight. I've been waiting here in the stillness of this empty house for nearly 24 hours, waiting for the end. Already once tonight I've heard that dreadful wailing cry somewhere in the hills. I've nailed up the closet door, but that I know is childish and useless. My arm is horribly swollen and turning black, but that's nothing. It's another end that I foresee, as surely as other men foresee the rising of the sun. I hear the cry again. It's nearer now. I shall leave these notes in a sealed envelope and put it in a shoebox, in the hope that someone will give credence to these dark and terrible events, if indeed such nameless horrors can ever yield to mortal understanding. As for myself, I feel no longer any fear or even sorrow. Only a desire that the end and the thing that I must do may come soon. And it will be soon, I know. Yes.
Someone at the door. Huh. What do you make of it, Sam?
It's quite a yarn. But what of it?
That's what I thought. Now listen, that's not quite all of it. Clip to it's a newspaper clipping. Listen. Hollywood, December the 26th. Police reported what was apparently a case of murder and suicide in Cypress Canyon sometime in the early hours of the morning. The victims were James A. Woods, a chemical engineer, and his wife, Ellen. Preliminary investigation indicates that Mrs. Woods was killed by the blast of a shotgun in the hands of her husband, who then turned the weapon upon himself. That she fought desperately for her life, however, was evidenced by the disorder of the room and the severe lacerations inflicted upon her husband about the neck and arms. This is the second tragedy to be reported in Cypress Canyon within 24 hours, the other being the unexplained death of Frank Polanski, a milkman.
Well, no such murders or whatever they were ever occurred, if that's what's worrying you. The clipping, well, you have those things printed up, you know.
No, it's not that, Sam. That story was found in an unfinished house in Cypress Canyon. No number, no nothing, just a framework. Now that house is finished. When I drove by it today, but that's what stopped me, Sam, because it all fits. Now that it's finished, it is the house in the story, the same construction, the same vines and creepers on the lawn, even the same numbers.
So what, a guy who knows roughly what this house is going to be like writes a yarn and loses it or something?
Did he know the place was going to be listed for rental today, the Saturday before Christmas?
Oh, Jerry, coincidence. Two bits you find the guy next door is a ghost story writer or something, and he's been wondering for a year what happened to that thing he wrote.
Okay, coincidence. Well, I'm sorry I bothered you, Sam.
Don't be silly. I liked it. It's a good yarn. That the for rent sign you were talking about?
Oh, yeah. I'm going to put it up outside now.
Uh-huh. Well, so long, Jerry, and Merry Christmas again.
Well, thanks, Sam. I guess I was kind of silly, all right. Huh?
Listen, when a guy named whatever it is, Woods, with a wife named Ellen, comes in to rent that place from you, then you can start worrying.
Yeah. Well, so long, Sam.
So long, Jerry.
Come in?
Oh, we're sorry to bother you, but we just happened to see that for rent sign outside.
Yeah, I hung it out just this minute.
Is the house available?
Oh, sure it is.
Let me introduce myself. My name is James A. Woods, and this is my wife, Ellen.
How do? Wow. Looks like it's fixing to...
Yes, it does, doesn't it?
Suspense.
Presented by Roma Wines, R-O-M-A, Roma Wines, selected for your pleasure from the world's greatest reserves of fine wines.
Tonight's original suspense play was written by Robert L. Richards. Next Thursday, same time, you will hear Miss Susan Peters as star of Suspense.
Produced by William Spear for the Roma Wine Company of Fresno, California. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.
That one still gets me every time I hear it. And it's not the first time we've played it on the show. In fact, it is the fourth time. I think the most memorable one was episode number 255. Podcaster Jim Harold was here and we listened and reacted to it together. We both agreed that this is one of the most original stories for its time. If you want to hear Jim's thoughts on it, or mine for that matter, I'll have a link in the show notes. One of the other great things about Suspense was that they loved to use the talents of Hollywood's famous actors, like our story today using Howard Duff. There weren't many that didn't appear on the series at some time. Names like Jimmy Stewart, Cary Grant, Humphrey Bogart, Lucille Ball, Olivia de Havilland, and many others all made at least one appearance. Another thing that helped keep the show on the air for 20 years was that the series had a generous budget from its network, CBS.
As read by. Amazing stories read by amazing people.
This time on As Read By, we have a few short stories that were sent in to the show. The first is an odd tale with a spine-chilling twist. It's titled, We Didn't Question Why, by Movie Man. We didn't question why the small town we'd found after getting lost in the countryside wasn't on the map. We didn't question why the shopkeeper in town didn't have eyebrows or a hair on his head. We didn't question why he looked so strangely at us. We didn't question why the gas station we stopped at was so cheap. We didn't question the clerk at the station, where were her eyebrows and hair, who insisted on making a phone call in the back before ringing us up. We didn't question why the funny man outside our car let us know that the sun was going down. We didn't question why so many bald people stood on the street watching us frantically leave their town behind. We didn't question why we began pulling our hair out and why we decided to turn around and head back to town. We knew why. This next story was sent in by Peter Kemper. He writes to us from Charlottesville, Virginia. His story is titled, The Light. We make fun of little kids for leaving the lights on everywhere. They turn them off in every room as if it's some sort of security blanket. And if you ever force them to turn them off, they cry and scream, and eventually the lights stay on. The only time they turn them off is with their parents. They feel safe, so very safe. Who am I? I'm the monster that lives in your closet. I'm friends with the one under your bed and the one in the shadows. When you see us, you flee to your mommy and daddy, but we're not here to hurt you. We're here to protect you. If you think we're scary, just wait till you see what we protect you from. They masquerade as one of you, and you can never tell. Humans must be blind. They'll pretend to love you, but it won't last. They try to convince you to let them in, but don't worry. We really love you, and we will protect you. So, when you see that shadow flit or a figure in the closet, remember we scary monsters protect you from the bad ones. You're safe with us. For now. This next story is titled Closet Light by Celia the Nerd. That's all I know about her. When I was a little girl, I used to read at night. I always kept my closet light on. It flowed from underneath the door and dissolved the illusion of darkness with white brilliance, warm and inviting. I felt so comfortable that I would forget to turn it off. But one night, it turned itself off. This last story is creepy. It was sent in by Serge Damon and is titled How I Sleep. I rarely sleep alone, not that I have a choice in the matter. The night always starts and, for that matter, always ends the same. I knock back a few sleeping pills, take my socks off, and let myself get drowsy. I can't tell you why I even take them still, the pills that is. I'm a creature of habit, you could say, but then again, so is she. I guess you could say we're inseparable. Not that I planned it that way, it's just how it is now. Every night I wait, and every night her face appears. No matter how badly I clog myself with prescription pills, I can feel her arrival. Sometimes she's just a face, sometimes a jaggedly rearranged torso. I couldn't tell you what's worse, her wide-eyed, contorted look of hatred, or that delirious look of malignant joy. It paces, too, or it glides like a conveyor belt back and forth. Her eyes never leave mine, eyes wild with rage, her lips agape, as if she was mimicking my horrified reaction. I've tried to escape, but I never make it past my bedroom door. My legs fail me, and I'm suddenly a heap by my dresser drawer. That's when she kneels and utters the only words I've ever heard her say.
You shouldn't have killed me.
And here ends As Read By. That was episode number 660, and thus begins the month of Spooky 2024. There's going to be a lot coming your way, and if you get too scared, don't forget to phone a friend. If you want to follow the podcast or the blog, head to ronsamazingstories.com. There you will find any of the links I mentioned and how to contact us. Do you want to help the show? The best thing you can do is to tell your friends all about it, and please leave reviews or feedback wherever you listen. Clicking that follow or like button helps us grow. Thank you for listening, and I hope you come again to find out what are Ron's Amazing Stories.
All of the vintage audio used in the podcast is believed to be in the public domain. Ron's Amazing Stories does not own the rights to any of the old-time radio used here. If you hold the rights to any of the shows played, please contact us immediately at ronsamazingstories.com.